Hey guys, what's going on? James here, and in this video today, we're going to be talking about some of the players that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have shown interest in leading up to this upcoming NFL draft at the end of April. I noticed, I believe either yesterday or recently rather, that I haven't posted a ton about this upcoming draft on my channel yet. Sure, I've done a couple of mock drafts, I've done a little bit of draft discussion back when I was at the NFL Combine, but in terms of really talking about some of the players that the Buccaneers have shown interest in, I haven't done much to cover that. So I am doing that in today's video. I have a mock draft coming out later today as well. This list of the players that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have met up with is from our friends over at pewterreport.com. I will post the article that they made down in the comment section below. I did add one name that they did not have on there that I know for a fact did meet with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but we'll get to that name when we get to it. But yeah, these are all the players that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have met up with in one way or another. This could be a local meeting. This could be a Zoom meeting, the Combine, the Senior Bowl. There's so many different ways the Buccaneers could have met some of these prospects. I'm not going to get into, every single way that the Bucs met these players. I'm just going to talk about that the Buccaneers did meet these players and what that interest could potentially mean for the team moving into the upcoming NFL draft. So, I did organize these by position groups. For quarterbacks, there is only one that they have met up with so far. Chris Olajuwon out of South Dakota State. Again, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers aren't going to be heavily invested in quarterbacks in this upcoming NFL draft because that position group is pretty much set in stone. You have Tom Brady, you have Blaine Gabbert and Kyle Trask, you have Ryan Griffin. There's not really a need to bring in a fifth quarterback. Maybe they do somewhere along the lines, but you have four guys who all know the system right now. They're all familiar with what needs to be done in a Byron Leftwich style of offense, and they can all execute it at a very good level. So, again, quarterback isn't, a position that I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to explore. Running back, however, is definitely a position that I still believe the Tampa Bay Buccaneers could explore in this upcoming draft. Folks, per Pewter Report's count, do you know how many running backs the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have met up with so far to this point before the NFL draft? 14. 14 running backs the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have met up with in one way or another leading up to the NFL draft. Yeah, do you think that they are interested in that position group? I certainly think that this is a telling sign. It's the most players that we know of so far by a pretty healthy amount. And again, this includes running backs like Isaiah Spiller out of Texas A&M, Brian Robinson out of Alabama, James Cook, the younger brother of Dalvin Cook. James Cook played at Georgia, Dameon Pierce out of Florida, Malik Davis out of Florida, Jerome Ford out of Cincinnati. He was in one of my mock drafts recently. Kyron Williams out of Notre Dame. Max Borghi out of Washington State, and the list just goes on and on, right, of these running backs that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have met up with and have shown interest in. And again, it kind of makes sense, right? Yes, I know that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers did just sign Leonard Fournette to a 3-year deal. They're giving him a healthy amount of money. Yes, I know that they re-signed Giovani Bernard, and they still have Keshawn Vaughn on their roster. But the Bucs like loading up at running back. They could very well still believe that they need a replacement for Ronald Jones at that running back 2 position. You could say that Keshawn Vaughn is due for a promotion, or Giovani Bernard is due for a promotion, but you could also say that, hey, the Buccaneers might just draft another running back to fill that role. I think that really for this position group, anything is on the table in terms of adding talent or promoting guys. All options, right, I think are available to this team, and they've certainly shown a lot of interest. And before people say, hey, well, this was before they re-signed Giovani Bernard and before they re-signed Leonard Fournette, yes, that is before they re-signed both of those players, but, I think that it's safe to say that Jason Light and his front office staff would consider the fact that they are at least going to try to add or re-sign Leonard Fournette and Giovani Bernard back into the mix while also still showing interest in some of these running backs. I don't think that was a smoking gun type of situation where it was just, well, we don't have him on the roster right now, so we're going to show an intense amount of interest in all of these running backs. No, I think that they probably had both thoughts in mind of, okay, yeah, we're going to try very hard to bring back Leonard Fournette and Giovani Bernard, and we're still going to show interest in these running backs in the upcoming NFL draft because maybe they want to add all three guys to the roster, Fournette, Bernard, and a rookie to be named later. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see, but the Buccaneers have shown a lot of interest in running backs in this upcoming NFL draft. Wide receiver, a position that definitely a lot of people still feel the Tampa Bay Buccaneers should invest in. I think it's understandable why, given the Buccaneers' injury history with wide receivers. They have so far talked to 4 that we know of. Treylon Burks, Chris Olave, that's a big name that a lot of people want the Buccaneers to potentially take in round number 1. I don't believe he will be there by the Buccaneers pick, but it's still certainly an option. Danny Gray, Alec Pierce, these are the names that the Bucs have shown some level of interest in, and, maybe they do invest in a wide receiver. Again, this is another position group, much like running back, that they have invested a lot in. They brought in Russell Gage. They re-signed a guy like Brashad Perriman. They gave Chris Godwin a big contract, but again, much like running back, you can never have enough good wide receivers. Keep on loading up that position group. I wouldn't be mad if the Buccaneers decided to draft a wide receiver. Yes, they have Tyler Johnson, Scotty Miller, Jalen Darden as depth pieces, but it's always nice to have healthy competition. Brashad Perriman is there as well, as is Cyril Grayson. There's a lot of, depth wide receivers who are going to be battling for spots, and maybe the Buccaneers continue to add to that in this upcoming draft. Tight end, this is the first position group that I think you could actually consider a need for the Bucs. Rob Gronkowski has still not decided as to whether or not he's going to come back to the Buccaneers or retire, and the Bucs did lose O.J. Howard in free agency to the Buffalo Bills. So the Bucs have been doing their research. You have Trey McBride out of Colorado State. I'm a big fan of his. Jelani Woods out of Virginia. You have Daniel Bellinger. You have Jeremy Ruckert. You have Austin Allen. And this is the name I added just based off the fact that I asked the guy at the Combine if he met with the Bucs, and he said yes. Greg Dulcich out of UCLA. And I think that this is a really, really solid tight end group this year, right? You've got a lot of guys who can catch the football and provide you with some good blocking as well. I think of Jeremy Ruckert, I think of Greg Dulcich, I think of Trey McBride as some of those names that jump off the page. You've got a freak athlete in Jelani Woods who is just going to be insane in my opinion, just in terms of his overall athleticism. This is a tight end group that adds a lot of versatility to their game and gives you a lot of different things. I think it's a good year for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to have a need at the tight end position with, possibly definitely needing at least a number 2 tight end, possibly even a number 1 tight end as well. I think they can find a couple of guys in this draft that fit that mold of, hey, being a number 2 guy and then possibly being a number 1 guy as well. You've got some guys who can get that work done and offer you a lot of versatility and I think starting capabilities in the NFL. Really happy with the Buccaneers showing interest in a decent amount of tight ends. They have 7, as far as this list is concerned, of guys that they have met with, and I think that it is a necessity. In terms of guards and centers, the Buccaneers have met up with 5. Cole Strange out of Chattanooga. I did ask him if he met with the Bucs. The answer to that was yes. Stuart Reese out of Florida. Jatir Carter out of, he's just an offensive lineman out of, I believe, Southern Mississippi, something along those lines. I'm not too sure. Dylan Parham out of Memphis. You also have Zion Johnson out of Boston College. Zion Johnson is another guy who I know a lot of Bucs fans have been clamoring for in this upcoming NFL draft. And I'm a little surprised we haven't seen more offensive guards or offensive linemen in general. In terms of tackles, the Buccaneers have met with 1. Nicholas Petit-Frere out of Ohio State. Probably didn't say that name right, but it is what it is. Point being is that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I think, maybe should be meeting with more offensive linemen, and we've still got time, right? The Buccaneers could still meet with a lot of offensive linemen. There is probably a lot of players that we don't know that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have met up with so far up to this point. But, I think whenever you look specifically at left guard, you have Aaron Stinney there who may end up being the starter there. He may also just be the backup to Shaq Mason. We don't know right now. You would assume Aaron Stinney is probably going to compete for a starting guard spot at left guard, right? So why not invest early? Why not invest in, say, the first or second round? Bring in another guard to compete. Zion Johnson's a big guy that I know a lot of people have been asking about. Dylan Parham, same thing. Cole Strange is a name that's been getting a lot of buzz to the Buccaneers in recent weeks. So I'm a little surprised that we haven't seen more names come up that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have met with along the offensive line, specifically the guard position, but that could very well change soon enough. I think the names that they do have on this list are guys that would compete for a starting job, so I think that they are at least investing or at least showing interest in that aspect of it, of, hey, if we are going to look for a guard, it's going to be a starting caliber guard. That makes sense to me. Maybe there will be more names coming up out of this position group here in the future. And then finally, guys, we move on to the defensive side of the football. Defensive line, or I guess I should say, defensive line. This is including defensive ends, defensive tackles. The Buccaneers have met with 6 so far per Pewter Report's list. You have Devontae Wyatt out of Georgia, Zach Carter out of Florida. You have Perrion Winfrey out of Oklahoma. Hey, he was in one of my mock drafts. Logan Hall out of Houston and Matthew Butler out of Tennessee. There is a couple of names on there as well, but point being, again, much like what I talked about in the offensive guard position, defensive line is a position that right now, you could say the Buccaneers could use a new starter or a fringe starter type of guy in that position group. The Bucs did bring back Will Golston. They are trying to bring back Ndamukong Suh, but they should always continue to add more talent. They could use more talent at that position group. Will Golston and Suh are not getting any younger. You want to have a young developmental guy, possibly in the early rounds. Based on the names that are on this list right now, those are some of the names that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have been meeting with. I know there's a lot of people who are fans of Logan Hall, specifically out of Houston. I'm a fan of Perrion Winfrey out of Oklahoma, and there's a couple of other names on there as well, like Devontae Wyatt, that I think Bucs fans have been clamoring for in the early rounds of this upcoming NFL draft. So I kind of look at defensive line and offensive line kind of in a similar position right now in terms of the Buccaneers' level of interest. Have they been meeting with a ton of names, say like the running back position group? No, not really. But the names that they are looking at are high-tier names that would be available in the early rounds. Is this the Buccaneers kind of keying in on a few guys that they really want and not settling for, say, taking some of these position groups later on in the draft? It's definitely a possibility. We will have to wait and see, but it is good that the Buccaneers are showing interest in some of the top tier guys of these position groups on the defensive line and the offensive line as well. Linebackers, there's only 2, Jeremiah Moon out of Florida and Alex Wright out of UAB. Jeremiah Moon is just a straight linebacker. I believe he is an inside linebacker, whereas Alex Wright is an edge defender. In this position group, I expect the Buccaneers to add some more veteran presence to these groups as depth. Carl Nassib is still a free agent. Still wouldn't be surprised if the Buccaneers brought him in. Kevin Minter could definitely be brought back as well for the middle linebacker position group. This is one that I don't think the Buccaneers would be heavily invested in. They still have Joe Tryon there as the presumed starter right now. They could still bring back Jason Pierre-Paul as a depth piece as well. So again, the Buccaneers do have some other needs at other position groups. Makes sense as to why they wouldn't invest a ton of interest or a ton of meetings and interviews and things along those lines at the linebacker and edge positions. Finally, we have the secondary, and I included corners and safeties in this because I feel it makes sense. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have met up with 5 cornerbacks so far per Pewter Report's list and 2 safeties. For the cornerbacks, you have Cam Taylor-Britt out of Nebraska, you have Dax Hill out of Michigan, Kaiir Elam, he was in one of my mock drafts, out of Florida, you have Roger McCreary out of Auburn, and then for the safeties, you have Kirby Joseph out of Illinois, and Dane Belton out of Iowa. And this is, again, much like the offensive line, much like the defensive line, this is one that I think the Buccaneers should and probably will invest early in this upcoming NFL draft, right? Not so much at safety. They have a lot of safeties now that I think have are going to provide some good, strong play for this Buccaneers defense. Keanu O'Neal, Mike Edwards, Antoine Winfield Jr., Logan Ryan, who's going to be playing both safety and cornerback a little bit. But corner is one that I know a lot of Bucs fans want this team to invest in, right? They brought back Carlton Davis, which was huge. They still have Jamel Dean, they still have Sean Murphy Bunting, but you could always add more. It's like running back, it's like wide receiver, always add more, because the injuries last year, forget about it. There were so many injuries. So yeah, I would not be mad, I would not blame the team at all if the Tampa Bay Buccaneers invested in early round draft pick, maybe in the first round, maybe in the second round, in a cornerback specifically. Again, not so much safety, but definitely a cornerback. And again, they're looking at some of the top tier corners that would be in their range. Kaiir Elam specifically, Cam Taylor-Britt, those are some of the guys that would be available in their range, right? And the Buccaneers know that. The Buccaneers are doing homework on those guys that would definitely be available in their range of picks in the first or second round. And I think that that is a smart move to make. Again, it's showing a high tier level of interest at a position group that I know a lot of Bucs fans want to see investment in, and it looks like the Buccaneers, to some degree, are doing their homework on some of the guys that would be available if they were to make that selection at the cornerback spot in, say, the first or second round. But folks, what can we gather from all these players, right? All these position groups that I covered? Well, you know, it's kind of a duality thing right now, right? You see running back and you see wide receiver, and the Bucs are doing their homework on a lot of different guys that are going to be available at different spots throughout the NFL draft. Whereas you look at offensive line, defensive line, cornerback, these are position groups where the Bucs are seeming to do homework at guys who are going to be available at the end of the first round, maybe at the end of the second round, and those are the guys they're doing homework on, which is interesting to see. I think in terms of what I'm gathering from it, running back is going to be something that, you know, the Bucs might keep open on the table throughout the entirety of the NFL draft. They'd be happy with a lot of guys. For offensive line, for defensive line, for cornerback, the Bucs might be standing here saying, well, we have some guys at the end of the first round. We have some guys at the end of the second round that we really, really like a lot. We're going to do some homework on a couple of guys if they were to be available in the later rounds of the NFL draft, but maybe that those three position groups are something that they want to explore, that they want to invest in specifically in the early rounds, whereas you look at a group like running back where the Buccaneers have done homework on a lot of guys throughout the draft and saying, hey, we could take somebody early, we could take somebody later. That isn't as much of a, let's say, pressing need for the Bucs, but guard, tight end as well. You can throw tight end into that mix. Guard, tight end, defensive line, cornerback, those are the position groups where the Bucs may look at it and say, hey, we are going to invest early. So those are kind of my thoughts and opinions based on that list of who the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have met up with leading up to the NFL draft so far up to this point. What do you guys think about this list? What would you want the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to invest in early in the draft or later in the draft as well in terms of position groups? I would love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hope y'all enjoyed. I have a mock draft coming out later today, so stay tuned for that. And then also at the end of this month, I've got a lot of cool projects coming up that I'm very happy to share with a lot of you guys. I don't know, basically there's one situation where I don't know how the heck I got into this situation, but I am so excited to share this project with you guys, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hope y'all enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video or the next live stream. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now, and go Bucs.